You can go back 100,000 years to a cave that will be discovered by archaeologists. What do you write on the wall to mess with them? Turns out time travel only works once per timeline. Sorry guys. This planet shall be our second home. This is a fertile land and we will thrive. And we'll call it this land. My regards to Stephen Hawking. Tell him sorry I couldn't make it to his party. This is my favorite. Effing gold. No, I didn't time travel. Or we found out we can only go forward in time. The pulsar map that we included on Voyager. That's a good one. That would F with them a lot. What if they discovered it before Voyager and then used it for Voyager? Nice little paradox there. But like, shifted so it centers on a different solar system. Now that would definitively conclude aliens. Having the exact same map would conclude. Test post please ignore. Hi devs, I found a bug within our simulation. I was somehow transported back 100k years without any of my items, but I still have my abilities. If I could be transported back by tomorrow, that'd be great. Thank you. Even better, 200k years, so that in 100k years into the future, they will think we have proof that we're living in a simulation. They have taken the bridge in the second hall. We have barred the gates but cannot hold them for long. The ground shakes drums. Drums in the deep. We cannot get out. The shadow moves in the dark. We cannot get out. They are coming. Just put the whole book of Mizabel on the cave walls. Really mess with people when they see the word orc. Man. What a cinematic experience that was. You're following them going through the mines for days. And you sense the growing despair. Then they find a tomb. Instead of the welcome party they expected. Gandalf reads the book. And you really feel a sense of dread coming. That fool of a Took bumps into the bucket. You cringe every time you hear the bucket and chain hit something on the way down. But then...
Ha 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 ha! Ooh, see, ne, no, snya, ni, ka, na, be, oh, ha ha! Hey!
No matter how many games in the Wipeout series you've played, everybody has a memory of an absolute bastard of a track. This video is going to relive some of those nightmares and take a look back at some of the most difficult tracks in the entire series. So let's go all the way back to the start and take a look at the original Wipeout. first 3 tracks in the original Wipeout may have had some nasty tricks up their sleeve, but they were fairly straightforward. However, that false sense of security was quickly broken when you reach Corredera. Most of the circuit is littered with quick corners, requiring you to be fairly good with the air brakes to maintain the craft's balance. Throw in a few sharp blind corners as well and you have a considerably tricky circuit. There's also one part in the track where you fly over a tall peak. If you're playing on Rapier class, you'll need to slow your craft down before you go over the top. If you don't, the craft will leave the track entirely. Arados 4 has a larger number of straight sections than Corredera, however it also has a larger number of tight corners, most of which are blind. Arados' track tends to be quite unstable and requires a lot of pitch control to manage the undulations. It's usually at this stage, especially on Rapier class, where you need to get the hang of opposite braking. No matter what Corredera or Arados 4 could throw at you, it's nothing compared to Silverstream. Multiple paths, undulating track sections, quick destabilising corners, sharp blind corners, and unusually for the first Wipeout game, a hairpin corner, this track is widely regarded to be the most difficult in the entire series. The track splits in half at 2 locations on Silverstream, once near the start and another around halfway round. On this run I've taken the left route both times. This branch contains some of the most difficult corner sequences in the entire game, however for those that can handle it, it's significantly quicker than the right branch. The right hand branches do tend to be easier than the left hand counterparts, but they do add around 2 to 3 seconds to your lap time. When racing on Silverstream, you want to avoid this route at all costs, otherwise it's likely you could fall so far behind you don't see another craft for the remainder of the race. So not only is the track brutally unforgiving in general, it also forces you to take the more risky options just to keep up with the remainder of the pack. Put all of this together and Silverstream has rightly earned its place as #1 bastard of the entire series. Garderopa is a track that likes to punish the impatient. It presents you with a large number of straight sections, tempting you to go flat out, before throwing you straight into a complex corner series. The interior sections are also very dark, making it difficult to judge corners, and outside you can be put off by lightning flashes. But what really adds to the difficulty is the fact that you can't race this track on anything other than Rapier class until you complete the Phantom tournament. So it's not as though you can use the lower speed classes to get used to the layout, you need to throw yourself straight in at the deep end. Odessa Keys is absolutely riddled with sharp blind corners, some of which are very difficult to tackle in a heavy craft. You need to have good thrust management to be able to tackle this circuit, and the final corner is next to impossible at full speed. Also, just like Garderopa, you can only rate it at Rapier class until you complete the Phantom tournament. Vostok Island is one of 2 tracks in the game that are unavailable at the start. You need to complete the Phantom tournament to unlock them. And it's an absolute beast of a track as well. Lots of quick destabilising corners, a few sharp blind turns, and later on in the lap the track narrows out considerably. But the biggest problem is that this track goes one step further than Garderopa and Odessa Keys. You can only race it on Phantom class until you complete the Piranha tournament. I don't think I've ever managed to do that corner. And the final track from 2097 is Spilskinanka. Oh my god, this course is horrible! Temtesh Bay Course 2 is an absolute travesty of a circuit. It's difficult for all the wrong reasons. It's littered with sharp blind corners, you have 2 parallel track sections that you can easily jump between, you've got open sections that can send you ploughing into a random rock pillar, and those bulkheads. Those bloody bulkheads. They don't open until you are practically on top of them. Basically, you're completely blind to the track up ahead, and there are loads of them all through the circuit. It's not so bad once you get outside, but there is nothing more difficult than that first section in the entire game. And no, it isn't any easier the other way round. Shenku Project made its debut back in Wipeout Pure, and believe it or not, it was actually slightly easier than the version in HD Fury. The thing is though, that's mainly down to the handling of the craft. You have a very sharp hairpin near the start, further round you have an outward banked left-hander, and near the end a very quick chicane series. And of course, this was only the 3rd circuit in Wipeout Pure. Cittanova has a few characteristic difficult sections, most notably a very sharp right hairpin halfway round the track. But that's not why this course is listed here. It's here because of an incredibly difficult undulating chicane series about 3/4 of the way round. Navigating such a sharp chicane series is difficult enough, but the undulations are so great they can actually throw your craft off the track, or even worse, flip it upside down entirely. Sabenko Climb needs no introduction. It's by far the most difficult circuit in Wipeout Pure. Plenty of very sharp corners that require you to be very good with your air brakes and with your pitch management. But to be honest, it is still slightly easier than its incarnation in Wipeout HD. Sabenko Peak is one of the shortest circuits in the game, but it is still brutally difficult in places. Some of the corners are designed to throw your craft off balance before going into a tricky corner. There's a very tight chicane series halfway round, and at the end is a banked left-hander that is very difficult to judge correctly. We kick off the Wipeout Pulse section with Platinum Rush. This course is cut from the same mould as Pimar Project in Wipeout 3. It does have its fair share of sharp corners, but it's the quick, shallow ones that can throw you off more than anything. The bank sections of the track also like to throw your craft up in the air, so you will need some good pitch management to keep it under control. The Black Run sends you through the more difficult sections right from the start, and it can be even more difficult to keep control of the craft as it's thrown up into the air. There are some sections where managing your thrust is crucial to navigating the track cleanly. Outpost 7 easily ranks up among the most difficult circuits in the entire series. The track has a nasty habit of darting about unpredictably, making your racing line absolutely crucial. But the most difficult feature of the circuit is the double hairpin very soon after the start of the track. The circuit can be even more unforgiving on the Black Run. The approaches to some of the corners are now nowhere near as favourable. And the hairpins have also lost most of their speed pads, so you'll need to be a lot more accurate with them than you were in the White Run. Vostok Reef's White Run is actually not that bad a track. It does have its fair share of sharp chicanes, but the majority of them are going downhill. This makes them much easier to see, and it provides a better line through them. So you may be asking, what is this track doing in this video? The answer to that question is the Black Run. Having to tackle the same sharp corners going uphill is a completely different story. The corners themselves now have a habit of throwing your craft into the air, making them much more difficult to navigate. As a result of that, you need to turn very early into the corners and allow your momentum to swing the craft through them. It's a technique that requires a lot of practice, and you need to be very familiar with the layout of the circuit before you can handle it properly. Gemini Dam will test your ability to use the air brakes to its absolute limit. The track is absolutely littered with consecutive sharp corners, some of which are right-angled. You need to have a very good racing line through this circuit. If you don't, it can punish you badly. The Black Run is absolutely relentless. There are now far more right-angle corners than there were in the White Run, and the two mag strips now completely blind you to the entrances to some of these corner series. You need to have absolute pinpoint control over your craft, because the track will not do you any favours. Zhengyu Project is back in Wipeout HD, and it has a few new tricks up its sleeve. The layout of the course is identical to how it was in Wipeout Pure. However, the track is a lot narrower through the hairpin, and the outward banked corner is now steeper. This makes it much more difficult to keep your craft in contact with the track, and as a result you'll need good pitch management to do it. The reverse variant is easier in some places but more difficult in others. The quick chicane at the start of the track has a less favourable line, as does the hairpin, which now appears near the end. However, the banked corner has now been flattened out, making it much easier to navigate. Benko Climb also makes a return from Wipeout Pure, and like Shengyu Project, it is more difficult this time round. The sharp corner series going up the mountain require you to be very hard and very fast on your air brakes. Timing is everything. And then near the end of the track, coming out of that highly banked corner and landing in that chicane series is not easy. The hardest part of the reverse circuit is trying to land in that chicane series coming at it from the other side. As you can see, the line going into it is very fine. Another thing you have to tackle are the sharp corner series, only this time going downhill. This requires you to have even better timing on your air brakes due to the speed that you gain from going downhill. The opening part of the Ubermall circuit is actually not that difficult. Where it starts to get hard is the track split. Coming out of the split, the track goes uphill and narrows dramatically. It then throws you into a chicane series. And if you can handle the craft well enough to manage that one, there's another even trickier chicane series waiting for you at the top of the incline. The reverse circuit is just as tricky. The entrance to the first chicane series is still not ideal, so you'll need to have good air brake and side shift use to get through it. And if you approach the second chicane at any reasonable speed, you may have to tackle it while in mid-air. Modesto Heights is a very tricky circuit indeed. Aside from the large number of right angle corners, there's also a number of banked corners that can cause you to lose control without quick reactions. Plus the interior section can be quite dark, making it difficult to see where you're going if you're unfamiliar with the track. And doing the course backwards makes life even more tricky. It's very difficult to get a good line through the shallow chicane series when you're coming at it through a banked corner. And the double right-hander near the end of the indoor section has an incredibly difficult approach. I hope you enjoyed this video.
Spot Knightley of the Knights of Favonius reporting for duty.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and ladies and gentlemen, I know the title of this video might be Facebook probably made a pretty big mistake. Now, these titles are a little bit more common here, but I like to reserve them for when I genuinely believe something has made a genuine mistake, okay? Facebook for me has always been a weird website. I find no value to Facebook. Ever since I stopped using a Facebook account years ago, I personally have felt much more healthier, much more happier, and quite honestly, it's only been a net positive for me. Now, the reason why we're talking about Facebook making a big mistake is not a mistake that they've made necessarily very recently, kind of half that, but really a mistake that's been festering since 2019. So sit back, strap up, because we're going down a time machine of your data being potentially stolen and used for nefarious purposes. Now, Facebook was apparently exposed, all right, for having more than 500 million accounts leaked out to the public. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to really give you perspective on what we're looking at, this is around 20-25% of Facebook's global population. Facebook has around 2.7 billion users internationally all the time. It is one of the biggest websites ever. There's only two websites, I believe, bigger than Facebook, and that's YouTube and Google, okay? So to put into perspective, this is one of the biggest websites that are available. In fact, Facebook might be number 2. To simply not have a Facebook account these days is just impossible. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, you still have a Facebook account. There are a billion services that Facebook has bought over the years, like Oculus or multiple other technologies that they themselves own. Instagram, WhatsApp, WhatsApp, you name it, it belongs to Facebook. Facebook is permeated everywhere, okay? There is a reason why Facebook is currently one of the largest tech companies to ever exist. So when they have 500 million accounts floating on the internet, someone fucked up is what happened, okay, ladies and gentlemen? There are some issues to be had over here. So to understand what has effectively happened, okay, we have to go all the way back to 2019. But before we do that, let's look at what happened. So this comes to us from Alan Gal, okay, who runs their own cybersecurity group company in Israel. And they actually covered this focus, right? In early 2020, a vulnerability that enabled seeing the phone number linked to every Facebook account was exploited, creating a database containing the information 533 million users across all the countries. So here they listed a actual forum link. Now these exist. These are hacker forums where people can buy a ton of things. To show you an example of it real quick, this is a forum known as Nulled. I think this might actually be the same forum. Let me check real quick. It might actually be the exact same type of forum. But you can see over here you can buy hacks real quickly for multiple things, right? VPN checkers, Twitter checker, combo converters, aimware cracker. There's a bunch of nonsense. Instagram checkers. There are a lot of tools available for hacking pleasure. I'm not promoting any of these things, but these forums exist. Regardless, on this forum was listed an entire database with name, mobile numbers, few email addresses, the gender, occupation, city, country, marital statuses are all in the list. The scariest thing of these are your name and mobile numbers, probably the occupation as well too. Now as you can see, these are how many users were affected everywhere. So you had 558,000 users affected, had their data leaked from Afghanistan, 3.4 million from Canada alone, and America was up in like 20 million at some point, 40 million. So it was a lot of users that had stolen data. To understand how fucked this database is, I'm going to show you a couple entries, obviously with things censored out. As you can see, they have things like your Facebook ID. They have things like your actual cell phone number right here. They have names. So in this case, they queried the name Hussein. And that's just a last name query, by the way, in this database. So obviously Hussein's a very common name. They found this. Then they had their actual facebook.com URLs that you could attach to, look up anytime you wanted. Another further string of their name. Then they actually had location. So in some cases, they actually had Saudi Arabia, okay? And of course, they had the city before and afterwards. I'm just mentioning Saudi Arabia as to not leak anybody's special information, just to give you an idea of the amount of information that was given away. Then they had other noticeable things like jobs, for instance, which I may not be able to show you, so I'm not going to do that. But as you can see, there was a fair amount of information that was leaked because what had happened was data was being scraped over and over and over again, and eventually a database was built so large that it contained 533 million users. Now, the problem with this necessarily isn't so much getting your data hacked. Now, what you have to understand is your data is out there in the wild. Your name, along with your publicly identifiable phone number, is currently out in the wild too. For a lot of people, this is personal information enough. Of course, Alan Gal mentions exactly what I'm mentioning over here. Bad actors will use the information for social engineering, scamming, hacking, and marketing. So you know how you get those calls all the time on your cell phone like, hey, just found out the FBI is after you for not paying your taxes. Press 1 to... Yeah, you're going to get a lot more of those scam calls now. And since they have more personally identifiable information, you bet there's going to be a lot of scam centers around the world that are going to be using this to their advantage. Oh, hey there, Bob Smith. Well, we got your number, we got your address, we've got your job. Yeah, we found out you're an engineer living in Idaho. Turns out the FBI has put you at top 10 most wanted. Turns out, if that's the actual Bob Smith who finds out, wow, this person knows a lot about my life, this might actually be the feds. That's the kind of hacks, that's the kind of scammy behavior that is to be the most feared out of it. There's going to be a lot of individuals who have no idea about how tech works, who are going to be taken advantage of because of this database. That is the ultimate scary side of it, okay? It's not so much getting your account hacked, it's so much as the social engineering implications that are going to take place because of a database like this. Now, from what I've been gathering, okay, none of this information has necessarily contained things like passwords, and I don't expect it to contain passwords. If anything, I would be blown away if Facebook, of all companies, wasn't properly salting and encrypting their passwords or keeping them stored completely separately. So as far as your account credentials go, it doesn't seem like that has actually had any bit of a hit. Because of the severity of such an issue like this, there have been several developers who have made sites like, have I been zucked? All right. Now, of course, you can enter your phone number, your email address, your full name. I have my cell phone number tossed into it, so I'm going to do that real quickly without leaking it to you all. I'm going to search for it once more, and it turns out I have not been zucked. So I am luckily one of the 2.8 billion Facebook users that are inactive, because I haven't deleted my account or anything, that do not have that have not leaked their information. And because of this, I'm going to sign into Facebook right now, not so much deactivate the account, but I'm going to remove all the personal information that I still may have on there to keep myself relatively safe from Facebook, okay? Because at that point, this is the most that I can do. So I'm going to leave the link to Have I Been Zucked in the comment section below. Actually, the description of the video maybe. So you can click on this link and find out if your Facebook account has potentially been zucked, so to speak, right? Now, you might be wondering, how do they get all these cell phone numbers, Muda? Is this leak actually real? Well, luckily enough, I have gotten the leak right here under a virtual machine. So basically, I was led to a leaked database, if you will. I didn't pay for it, but this is in fact the leaked database. I can corroborate. There are a bunch of links. As you can see, I can download by country if I wanted to. Now, I can download Yemen, I can download Qatar, I can download Russia, I can download the United States, which is what I decided to go with. And a lot of these databases are about a gig each. Now, this is one that I've opened up right over here. And to understand just how fucking wild this is, I'm going to censor pretty much all of it, okay? All of it is censored. But one thing to notice with this database is that it has literally names, it has the gender, it has occupation, okay? Occupation. For instance, people could be working in Marine Corps recruiting, okay? It'll literally give you all of that. So all the data you put on there thinking that it was, I guess, relatively safe, even if you had hidden it, this information was still readily given out. So now you've got names, location, cell phone number, and a general location, marital status, and whatever you left on Facebook at that point in time. It also comes with a date and time mentioned over here, which I believe is more so when this data was scraped, not so much when the account was created. Now, it's interesting to wonder, right? How did Facebook get access to all these numbers? We literally just looked at the leaked database right now. I mean, I showed you as much as I could just to prove to you that none of this is bullshit. This database exists out there, okay? How did Facebook get access to all these cell phone numbers? From what I recall, Facebook is not a company that necessarily requires cell phones to be used. But there was a point in time when Facebook went out of its way to suggest that users use something called two-factor authentication. If you don't know that, basically every time you log into a website, you can enable the feature where they'll send a text message to your cell phone. That text message will have a 6-digit code that you put into the web browser to further prove that you are that person. It's an extra form of security. But Facebook actually was a little douchey about it. In fact, Facebook was actually playing with people's minds, people's fear, if you will, because they had to actually pay the United States government, I shit you not, let's look at this real quick. We are extremely proud of the landmark penalty and conduct relief announced today. The size of a $5 billion US dollar penalty, as well as percentage of profits it represents, will provide significant deterrence to not just Facebook, but to every company that collects or uses consumer data. That's a pretty big penalty for data violations. What did they fucking do? Let's read page 1 real quick. In 2012, Facebook entered into a consent order with the Federal Trade Commission, resolving allegations that the company misrepresented to consumers the extent of data sharing with third-party applications that had control and the control consumers had over the sharing. So the allegation here is that Facebook didn't represent how much they were sharing with third parties. If you don't know, that's how big tech companies deal with it. When you're given something for free, you're the product. Your data is the product. Your private information is shared around with third parties all the time. The 2012 order barred such misrepresentations and required Facebook to establish a reasonable program to protect privacy. Our complaint announced today alleges that Facebook failed to live up to its commitments under that order. Facebook subsequently made similar misrepresentations about sharing consumer data with third-party apps and giving users control over that sharing, and misrepresented steps certain consumers needed to take to control facial recognition technology. Facebook also allowed financial considerations to affect decisions about how it would enforce its platform policies against third-party users of data. In addition to these order violations, today's complaint alleges that Facebook violated the FTC Act by engaging in a new set of deceptive practices relating to the collection and use of consumer phone numbers provided by consumers to enable security features such as two-factor authentication. So here's where they have again subjected Facebook to a record-breaking $5 billion penalty, which is probably one of the biggest penalties imaginable. Facebook actually had to fucking pay this And it wasn't just a penalty. This is the settlement with the FTC, okay, after they had done this. Just basically telling people, yeah, we're trying to secure your accounts. Thank you for giving your cell phone numbers. Oops, it's there for the third party. You're like, come on now. This is a settlement they had to make with the FTC in order to keep the lights on. Do you think that was bad? Remember when the Australian government sued Facebook over a VPN Onavo that it was trying to push? Through Onavo Protect, Facebook was collecting and using the very detailed and valuable personal activity data of thousands of Australian consumers for its own commercial purposes, which we believe is completely contrary to the promise of protection, secrecy, and privacy that was central to Facebook's promotion of the app. So they're alleging that the app Facebook is trying to pimp out to protect your data is, guess what, magically also stealing it too. Of course, if you want to look more into Onavo, you're free to do so. This entire company also went defunct in 2019. So, of course, you wonder why it went defunct? Well, it is what it is, right? Now, believe it or not, you might be wondering, Muda, with something this massive in the scope, so many people talking, I mean, there's literally articles upon articles covering this. What do you think Facebook's comm director decided to put down? This is old data. It was previously reported on in 2019. We found and fixed the issue, guys. Relax. It's not a big ratio. All right, come on now, get out of here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to put it out like this, okay? Facebook is not run by dumbasses. People get hacked all the time. If anything, this should teach you that your data is siphoned around all over the world, and you can't even trust it with the largest tech companies imaginable. Because if Facebook is not doing it, if Activision and Google and Microsoft screw up here and there, imagine how much you might screw up. Your data needs to be secured as much as you can because it is worth more than you. But I want to say that this excuse, to me, is a bit bullshit. Because to be honest with you, when you look through this database, there are some entries that go a little bit beyond 2019. Some of them can go all the way up to the end of 2019. I haven't verified every single bit of this information out of the databases because there are 544 million accounts. I'm one person, not going to happen. But if I'm witnessing that and there's people corroborating that information, you have a bit of a conflicting statement. And at the same time, Facebook, what kind of a fucking dumb statement is that? You know, you do realize when you get hacked, you have to own up to your shit. You have to tell people that because there is a federal problem with it. If you don't tell us we're getting hacked, if I have to go to haveibeencucked.com to figure out if I had my Facebook information stolen, that's bad news. If I have to look through a database off of the dark web, off of some hacker forum and corroborate my information, we've got problems, all right? We've got an issue. Facebook should make a public statement. Facebook should probably be fined for this kind of stupid behavior because it's not the first time they have played around with user privacy. Facebook provides nothing of value to anybody, okay? You could literally live without a Facebook account and be a happier human being. The problem with a Facebook account is that Facebook has such a deep entrenched place in a lot of tech firms that your data ultimately does go to them. And it is because of that that they should be held to a higher standard to protect your fucking data. They don't care. They actively just don't care, all right? They have shown, at least in action, they don't care. You can tell me that you care about privacy. You can tell me you don't want to spy on me, but actions speak louder than words, Armano. Come on now. If you go all the way back to 2019, this is when 267 million Facebook user IDs were exposed online. They were updating it in real time. Around in March 9, 2020, it was 309 million users. So this was back in the day when this Comparitech teamed up with Bob Diachenko, another security researcher, and they uncovered the Elasticsearch cluster. What this basically was a group of Vietnamese cyber criminals operating, and they were basically abusing, from what I understood, the Facebook API to siphon numbers. Why would they do that? Because they were conducting large-scale SMS spam and messaging campaigns, as they mentioned over here, and threatening those end users that they had siphoned the information out of. Obviously, social engineering can do a lot more than just hacking your computers. Ladies and gentlemen, if you figure out somebody's personal information to the point where you can reasonably scare them, you can siphon a lot more money out, you can run a lot more crazy scams. It is a lucrative market. There's a lot of money to be made from every single person on here. You have to look at every single individual who had their data leaked as a potential mark for a scam. Some person might give up $50. One person you call up might be scammed and lose $500. One might lose $5,000. It pools up pretty quickly. The reason these scams exist to the level that they do is they ultimately work. And with databases like this that are so granular with this level of private information that you may not realize is enough, but it is enough to run these scam campaigns as something that's still going to be used. with over 500 million user accounts having their information stolen, that's a lot of scams to be done all over the world. You can expect those scam centers around the world to be calling people up day and night because of this information. There are other websites as well, and I've shown this in Virus Investigations, Have I Been Pwned? This is where you put your email address. I'm not going to show you mine, but I put in an email address from years ago. And in this email address, they were able to tell me that I had my email broken in 2,844 separate data breaches. God bless. They told you passwords were taken out, email addresses. Basically, this website will go through all of these databases, verified or unverified, to warn you what kind of information gets stolen and from where. So at some point, Town of Salem got hacked. Club Penguin Rewritten had my data stolen. Back when I was looking at, well, this is before I looked at the weird, scary situation regarding, you know, the private server situation, if you will, back in the day. There was Evany, okay? Yes, laugh at me all you want. I clicked there for the tits, and that's pretty much what it was. Emu Paradise. Can't even really use that site anymore, but it helped my data get stolen. Passwords, IP addresses, and usernames. So you really have to look through all this information, and you really have to keep on track with how much your information does get stolen. So it's great to periodically check this from time to time. Now, this video has gone on for far too long anyways, but I just wanted to really make this one to tell you about what I'm really feeling regarding this situation. Facebook has made a genuinely grave mistake, in my opinion. And one of them was basically trying to plug a security patch, which I didn't even have an issue with anyways. Listen, security breaks happen all the time. Any cybersecurity researcher, anybody in this business, anybody who knows anything about keeping computers safe and data secure will tell you that hacks and breaches happen all the time. It's the biggest way hacks ever happen. It's the only real way sometimes how people figure out passwords for your various other accounts. For instance, lots of people share passwords between websites. If you want to get a Facebook password, you go to a crappy website that the person may have used. You grab the information from there and you hope to God they were sharing passwords. And sometimes you get lucky. And there's a host of other pieces of information you can dig out of somebody through less secure websites. Breaches happen all the time. That's something anybody can tell you. It's disingenuous to make Facebook the bad guy because of this solely. What makes Facebook the fucking bad guy in this situation is Facebook has treated this with no severity. Okay, they have said, yeah, we fixed it. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. No, data being stolen is a big deal, and there's no such thing as data that's old. You know, how many people actively switch around their cell phone numbers after a data breach? How many people even change their passwords? How many people know that their data has been breached, Facebook? That you think that this data is just old. 2019 was not so far away. People still have the same cell phone plans. I still have the same cell phone number I've had for years. So the fact that that information was leaked and you haven't really went out of your way to claim responsibility, to apologize, to notify these users, to notify every user on the network appropriately and with due diligence is a little fucking shady on my part. And of course Facebook expects, and they probably will just get away with it after a month anyways. But this is why videos like this are important, is you gotta call this company out on this BS. You gotta call any company out on this nonsense. As somebody that has advocated security and privacy on this YouTube channel for years at this point, this kind of egregious mistake is a landmark, and it's something that should be talked about. So ladies and gentlemen, Facebook made a mistake. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.
Cuando lo que te apasiona es conducir, lo que importa es el rendimiento verdadero, como tener la suspensión todoterreno más avanzada para estabilizar las curvas, absorber los golpes y manejar los obstáculos. Polaris, think outside.
People who quit their jobs on the first day. What was your I'm outta here moment? Summer job working for a landscape architect. Got to the job site and he asked me to dig a hole in some rocky dirt. I asked for a shovel. He didn't have one. I asked for a hand spade. He didn't have one. He told me to just dig the hole with my bare hands and then he drove off to another site leaving me completely alone. I dug for a little bit and then said F this and left. Had the job specified that I needed to supply my own tools I could have, but it didn't, and I wasn't going to work for somebody that expected folks to dig through hard, rocky soil with their hands. I answered an ad for a babysitting job. I was already working on a casual basis, but it was sporadic, so I thought some after hours babysitting would be welcome extra cash. The couple were both in the military and proceeded to tell me that I would be staying in the spare room and looking after their 6-month-old child around the clock as well as doing the housework. I would have 1 day off every 2 weeks. They said it is cash in hand so I could sign on to the dole unemployment benefit to make up the rest of the money. I left on the spot. They wanted a live-in housemaid and nanny, not a babysitter, and they were not able to pay for one. Why they thought it was up to me to illegally collect the dole to subsidize them, I don't know. Had an orientation for an alarm company. Next day manager calls and says don't worry about going into the office and to meet at Planet Hollywood. They like to get to know the employees better over lunch. Next day I go into the office and another employee whom I had not met says you must be Scandal 929. I was like They responded light-skinned. Pretty boys, how the manager described me. Insane conversation. I found out no one else had ever been invited for a get-to-know-you lunch. I'm out. Which is a shame, as you clearly have well-tuned internal alarms. You would have been a real asset there. Applied for a job at my longtime favorite restaurant. Celebrated my birthday there every year. Owner asks me to come in for basically a tryout. As I communicated, I was looking at other job possibilities. I come in and they just stick me on dishwashing for an hour. No biggie. Then their dishwasher doesn't show up, so the kitchen manager asks me to stay one for their lunch rush. Sire, I'll get paid for the hours. I do. Kitchen staff was nice, so I was happy to help out even though I figured I'd be taking a different job. I fill out a time card at the end of the shift and tell the manager I probably won't be back. He understands and thanks me for the help. Fast forward a couple weeks and he tells me to email the owner after I ask him if I should pick up my measly paycheck. I do. She basically tells me to F off over text, tells me it was staging and that she told me I won't be paid. I respond that I understand that, but that I stayed an extra 3 hours which I was told I'd be paid for. She stops responding. I decide I want to be petty over the $40, so I get the Statwa Labor Department involved. Dude goes in there and makes her pay me for the hours including the first staging hour. Couple weeks later I got my $40. Never went back to that restaurant. You're not petty. I wonder how many other people they fleeced for free labor. You would not believe what restaurants get away with. And they're so blatant about it. It's such an insane work culture. I'm glad I experienced it, but the thought of doing it every day makes my job being a well-done hour total cakewalk. I was a waitress. The only waitress at a just opened diner. The boss didn't have me sign any paperwork. Everything was under the table, but that wasn't what made me quit at the end of the night. In order to get me where he wanted me to go, he would pinch my skirt at my upper thigh, not quite the butt but very close, and pull me around like it was a leash. Needed me in the kitchen? Rather than call me, he would come out, pinch my skirt and pull to the kitchen. Needed me at the cash machine? Again. Come over to wherever I was. Didn't matter if I was serving a customer, and
We always stick together because that's what families do.
Saving the world is our family business.
3, 2, 1, go!
kitchen is so hard to clean. If only there was an easier way.
Hi, I'm Derek Bum. Say goodbye to daily stains and dirty surfaces with new Kitchen Gun. New Kitchen Gun. Sparkles like new. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. I love you, Kitchen Gun. Just 3 shots from Kitchen Gun. Say goodbye. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. This sink is filthy, but just 3 shots from Kitchen Gun. And it sparkles like new. Look how it cleans this greasy hob. Goodbye, dirt. Grubby tiles. I love you, Kitchen Gun.
This kitchen is so hard to clean. If only there was an easier way.
New Kitchen Gun. Sparkles like new. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. I love you, Kitchen Gun. Just 3 shots from Kitchen Gun. Say goodbye. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new.
This toilet is so hard to clean. There must be an easier way.
Hi, I'm Derek Bum, and I'm declaring war on toilets with new Toilet Grenade. Just pull the pin, pop it in the bowl, put the lid down, and that Toilet Grenade do the rest. Toilet Grenade, bang! New Toilet Grenade. Sparkles like new. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. I love you, Toilet Grenade. Just 3 shots from Toilet Grenade. Say goodbye. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. New Kitchen Gun. Sparkles like new. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. I love you, Kitchen Gun. Just 3 shots from Kitchen Gun. Say goodbye. Yeah, all clean again. Sparkles like new. Sparkles like new.
Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't
Want a new voice?
Voice.
Feels weird picking it up. The legacy of that shield is complicated, to say the least.
That shield should be destroyed. This world is ours. We're never gonna stop.
It's the closest thing I've got left to a family.
I'm not gonna let anybody tell me I can't fight for it.
Now streaming on Disney Plus, and upgrade to the Disney Bundle for even more.
Bang this out. That doesn't work. Or does it?
Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of people in your lobby that are in game, which is why chat might not be very fair.
Yep. Do you see what I'm?
2 is fresher than 1. That's why Smith's uses drivers that travel in teams. Fewer stops means fresh gets to you faster. Just one more way, we're fresher than fresh. Smith's, fresh for everyone.
Grammarly is your personal writing assistant for clear emails, confident messages, stronger essays, and more to help you and your kids get work done from anywhere.